In ancient times, names weren't just labels. They revealed identity, authority, and purpose. In Scripture, God's names aren't random. Each one unveils a part of his divine nature. He is too vast, too glorious, too infinite to be known by one title alone. One moment, he is Creator. In another, he is Healer, Provider, Warrior, or Shepherd. Every name is a doorway into a different encounter with him. His names speak when words fail, bringing peace to chaos, light to darkness, and hope to despair. They carry weight, meaning, and power that transform lives. Knowing God's names isn't about memorizing syllables. It's about discovering who he wants to be in your life today. When you understand his names, you don't just know about God, you experience him personally. This mystery isn't hidden to confuse, it's hidden to invite. The more you seek, the more you discover how near and real he truly is. Before we continue, please do me this favor. Please like, subscribe, share, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next revealing chapter of these timeless stories. In ancient Hebrew culture, a name wasn't just a way to identify someone. It was a declaration of their essence, their calling, and their future. A name revealed a person's character, purpose, and even their destiny. Parents chose names with deep meaning, often guided by divine revelation or prophetic insight. When God changed someone's name, like Abram to Abraham or Jacob to Israel, it marked a transformation of identity and mission. The Hebrews believed that to know someone's name was to glimpse their soul. This belief shaped how they saw God. Each name God revealed wasn't just a title. It was a sacred invitation to understand who he is and what he desires to do. To them, calling on God's name meant invoking his presence, power, and promises. That's why the names of God were treasured, feared, and never spoken lightly. They carried the weight of heaven and the unfolding of destiny. Each name of God is like a radiant gem, reflecting a different facet of his divine nature. He is too magnificent, too complex, too holy to be summed up by a single name. When he is called Elohim, we see his unmatched power as the creator of the universe. As El Shaddai, he reveals himself as the all-sufficient one, pouring out strength in our weakness. When he is Jehovah Jireh, he becomes the provider who sees our needs before we speak them. Through Jehovah Rapha, he heals broken bodies and wounded hearts. As Jehovah Shalom, he quiets storms with his peace. Each name is a doorway into a divine experience, an encounter with a part of God's character we need in life's changing seasons. These names are not just ancient titles, they are living truths. To know them is to draw closer to the heart of a limitless, personal God. What if the breakthrough you've been waiting for is hidden in the name you've never spoken? In the Bible, people didn't just pray, they called on the name of God. Not just any name, but the one that matched their moment. When Hagar was lost and desperate, she called him El Roy, the God who sees. When Abraham stood trembling on Mount Moriah, he called him Jehovah Jireh, the Lord who provides. Each time, something miraculous happened. What if you've been calling out in pain, but not by the name that aligns with your need? Could it be that healing, deliverance, peace, or victory is waiting for the moment you speak his name in faith? The right name? His names aren't magic, but they unlock dimensions of his presence. So what happens when you stop using generic prayers and start calling God by the name that matches your situation? Everything changes. Before anything existed, before light, sound, time, or space, there was Elohim. In the opening verse of Genesis, this is the name God chose to reveal himself. Not weak, not silent, but powerful, intentional, and creative. Elohim spoke, and galaxies obeyed. Mountains rose, oceans formed, stars ignited, all from his voice. He didn't shape the world from resources. He formed everything from absolutely nothing. This name means mighty creator, the one who brings beauty from void, purpose from chaos, and life from emptiness. He is not distant. The same Elohim who sculpted the universe with words also shaped you. Your breath, your fingerprints, your future, they're all part of his design. When you feel broken, lost, or unseen, remember this: Elohim doesn't need raw materials. He just needs surrender. And from your nothing, he can create everything. You're not random. You're the intentional masterpiece of the Most High Elohim. In the beginning, the earth was formless and void, dark, silent, lifeless. But then, Elohim stepped in. With just his voice, chaos surrendered.
Light pierced darkness, order replaced confusion, and beauty rose from desolation.
This is the power of Elohim, the mighty creator who doesn't need perfection to begin working. He thrives in the midst of disorder, transforming what seems ruined into something glorious. When your life feels like a mess, when dreams are shattered and direction is lost, remember this: Elohim creates out of chaos. He doesn't wait for you to have it all together. He speaks into the storm and reshapes everything with precision and purpose. The same power that formed galaxies now reaches into your brokenness, ready to create again.
You are never too far gone, never too empty.
In God's hands, even your chaos has creative potential. With Elohim, nothing is wasted, everything is transformed. The name Elohim, mighty creator, does more than describe what God did. It reveals who you are. You were not formed by accident or assembled by chance. Elohim crafted you with purpose, detail, and intention. Just as he spoke stars into place and carved rivers through rock, he designed your soul with gifts, dreams, and destiny. This name declares that your life holds divine value, even when you feel small or unseen. If Elohim can bring structure to chaos and beauty from void, he can restore broken identity and revive forgotten purpose. You are not defined by past mistakes, pain, or rejection. You are defined by the hands that made you. His name, Elohim, whispers truth into your soul. You are created, you are chosen, you are called. Every part of you carries the fingerprint of the Creator. You exist for a reason, and Elohim's breath still speaks life into that reason today. There are moments when life feels like a void, when dreams shatter, relationships crumble, and hope seems distant. In those times, it's easy to feel like you're nothing, just another speck lost in the chaos. But remember this: Elohim doesn't need a perfect foundation to create something beautiful. When you feel empty, he specializes in creating everything from nothing. Just like he shaped the world out of darkness and formlessness, he can take your brokenness and make it whole. When your heart is in pieces, Elohim can breathe new purpose into your life. He doesn't wait for you to be perfect. He steps into your emptiness and starts building. No matter how shattered you feel, his power can reshape you.
You are never too far gone.
From your nothing, he will create a future, full, abundant, and beautiful. In your weakness, Elohim's mighty hand begins the work of restoration. In the wilderness, when Moses stood trembling before the burning bush, he asked a question that echoed through history: "Who should I say sent me?" And God's answer: "I am who I am." This was Yahweh, the sacred name that could not be spoken lightly, the name that means self-existent, eternal, and unchanging. Yahweh doesn't depend on anyone or anything. He simply is. For Moses, this name wasn't just a title, it was a divine promise. Yahweh, the covenant-keeping God, had always been with his people, even when they couldn't see or understand him. This name speaks to us today with profound significance. When life feels uncertain, when promises seem broken, Yahweh stands firm, unshaken by time or circumstances. He's the God who makes, keeps, and fulfills covenants. When you call on Yahweh, you invoke the faithful, unchanging God who is always with you, never leaving, never failing. Imagine standing before a burning bush, its flames flickering yet never consuming, as if the very fire held the presence of God himself. This was Moses' I am moment, a divine encounter that shook him to his core. When God declared, "I am who I am," it wasn't just a name, it was a profound revelation of his eternal, unchanging nature. In that moment, God wasn't just telling Moses who he was revealing that he always is.
No beginning, no end, no limit.
Everything Moses thought he knew about God was expanded in an instant. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was not a distant memory. He was present now in that very moment. Yahweh was not confined by time or circumstance. He is, and always will be, the covenant-keeping God, faithful and ever-present. When you face your own trials, remember, Yahweh the Great I Am is with you always. Yahweh the Great I Am is not just a name, it's God's promise to be with you, unwavering and eternal. In a world where everything shifts, where people come and go, circumstances change, and even the seasons of life shift, Yahweh stands as an unmovable constant. He isn't bound by time, he is the same yesterday, today, and forever. When life feels uncertain, when friends fail or dreams crumble, remember that Yahweh has promised never to leave you. His covenant with you is unbreakable. He doesn't change with your circumstances or your feelings. His presence remains steady, steadfast, and reliable. Yahweh is the reminder that no matter how broken you may feel, God's love and faithfulness endure.
You are not alone.
He doesn't just show up in your triumphs. He's there in your pain, your waiting, and your wandering. Yahweh's promise is a constant anchor in a turbulent world.
In the darkest moment of life, when fear whispers and hope feel distant, the name Yahweh burns brighter than ever.
It is the name that refuses to fade, even when everything else around you seems to crumble. Yahweh is the God who was with Moses in the wilderness, who stood by Israel in captivity, and who never abandoned his people. His name carries a promise that transcends time. He will never leave nor forsake you. In your loneliness, Yahweh is near. In your pain, he is present. His eternal, unchanging nature stands as a beacon of hope, reminding you that no night is too dark for his light to shine through. When life feels overwhelming, Yahweh's name still burns with power because it is not just a title. It's the living, active presence of the Creator, who remains steadfast, holding you close through every storm. When Abraham faced the impossible, when his body was old, his wife's womb barren, and the promise of a child seemed hopeless, El Shaddai appeared. This name, meaning the all-sufficient God, was revealed in a moment of deep despair, when everything seemed impossible. Abraham had waited years, faced countless doubts, and yet, it was in that very moment of weakness that El Shaddai stepped in. He is the God who doesn't just provide for our needs, he overflows. Where human strength ends, his sufficiency begins. In the silence of waiting, he speaks the loudest, reminding us that his power is greater than our limitations.
El Shaddai feeds the impossible, transforming barrenness into abundance.
When life pushes you to the brink, when all hope seems lost, remember this: El Shaddai doesn't work within your limitations, he exceeds them. His sufficiency is enough for you, even when you can't see how. The name El Shaddai carries a depth of meaning that stretches far beyond a simple title. Translated as God Almighty, it speaks to his infinite power and authority over all creation. But there's another layer, many-breasted one. This imagery paints a picture of a nurturing, life-giving God who not only holds ultimate power but also deeply cares for his people. Just as a mother nourishes her child, El Shaddai is the one who provides abundantly, ensuring no one goes without what they need. He is both powerful and tender, mighty and merciful. This name assures us that when we face impossible situations, he is not only able to change our circumstances, he desires to provide, to sustain, and to nourish us. El Shaddai is not a distant God. He is the one who wraps us in his care, feeding us with hope, strength, and everything we need to thrive, even in our darkest moments. When every other source of strength runs dry, when the world offers no answers and hope seems far out of reach, El Shaddai, the many-breasted one, steps in to nurture and sustain us. In those moments of emptiness, when you feel like you've given all you have and there's nothing left, God's provision becomes a lifeline. Just as a mother nourishes her child, even when everything else is uncertain, God pours his abundant care into our lives. El Shaddai doesn't just provide in abundance. He nurtures us at our most vulnerable, offering a peace that surpasses understanding. When all other sources of comfort, energy, or hope dry up, God's nurturing presence never fades. He replenishes our strength, fills our hearts with fresh purpose, and reminds us that even in our weakest moments, he is enough. His supply is endless, and his love is ever present. Abraham's journey was marked by a profound tension, his barrenness versus God's abundance. For years, Abraham and Sarah faced the crushing weight of unfulfilled promises. The promise of descendants seemed impossible, a cruel irony in the face of their inability to conceive. They watched as time slipped away, their hopes growing dimmer. But then, in the midst of their deepest despair, El Shaddai, the all-sufficient one, stepped in. The barren land of their hearts, filled with doubt and waiting, suddenly became the fertile ground of God's power. The moment was electric with suspense. Would God's promises hold true? Would his abundance break through the overwhelming weight of their circumstances? When it seemed like all hope was gone, the God of abundance made the impossible possible. And in that sacred moment, God's power transformed barrenness into a promise fulfilled, proving that no matter how empty we feel, his abundance is greater. On Mount Moriah, the tension was unbearable. Abraham, with a heavy heart, prepared to sacrifice his only son, Isaac, the promised child. The very thought of it shattered him. He had waited so long, believed so deeply in God's promises, yet here he was, standing on the edge of an unimaginable test. Isaac, unaware, carried the wood for the sacrifice, and Abraham's faith was being stretched to its breaking point. But just as the knife rose, a voice from heaven stopped him. "Do not lay a hand on the boy." In that instant, Abraham's faith was rewarded with a glimpse of God's provision. A ram appeared, caught in the thicket, a living symbol of Jehovah Jireh, the God who provides. In the last moment, when all hope seemed lost, God's provision was revealed. Jehovah Jireh doesn't just provide when it's convenient. He provides exactly when we need it most, in the most desperate of times. The moment was unbearable, Abraham's hand poised with a knife, his heart breaking with every breath, as he prepared to sacrifice his beloved son Isaac. He had obeyed God's command, but his soul screamed in agony. How could the promise of descendants come through this? Time seemed to freeze. Every moment felt like eternity as Abraham's faith was stretched to its limit. But just as the knife descended, a voice from heaven broke through the silence. "Do not harm the boy." In that split second, everything changed. A ram appeared, caught in a thicket, God's provision, arriving precisely at the last moment. Jehovah Jireh, the God who provides, had intervened when it seemed all hope was lost. In the darkest, most desperate moment, God's provision came not a moment too early, but exactly when Abraham needed it most. Just before the knife fell, God's grace showed up in the most miraculous way. Across the world, there are countless modern-day testimonies of God's last-minute divine intervention, where the impossible was made possible just when all hope seemed lost. One person, facing a life-threatening illness, was told there was no hope left. Yet, against all odds, a new treatment was found in the final hour, transforming their diagnosis. Another, burdened with overwhelming debt, was on the verge of giving up when an unexpected job offer came, wiping out years of financial struggle. These stories, though different, share the same theme. God's provision appears just when we think the knife is about to fall. Jehovah Jireh, the God who provides, is still at work today. He sees our struggles, hears our cries, and in his perfect timing, intervenes with miracles that leave us in awe. The God who provided for Abraham on Mount Moriah is the same God who shows up for us in our most desperate moments. When God waits until the final second, it can feel like your faith is being stretched to its breaking point. The waiting is excruciating, filled with doubt and fear. But it's in these moments of intense pressure that God is shaping us, building a deeper trust in his timing and faithfulness. Jehovah Jireh is not just the God who provides, he is the God who refines. When you find yourself in the waiting, remember that God's delay is never denial. It's an opportunity to surrender your control and lean into his perfect plan. As the seconds tick by, hold on to the truth that he is never late. Trust that his provision will come, not a moment too soon or too late, but exactly when you need it most. In the final second, God's grace will shine through, reminding you that his timing is always perfect, even in your most desperate moments. In the desert, the Israelites came to Marah, where the waters were bitter and undrinkable, symbolizing their brokenness and suffering. In their desperation, they cried out to God, and he revealed himself as Jehovah Rapha, the God who heals. With a simple act, God instructed Moses to throw a piece of wood into the water. The bitter became sweet. This moment was more than just a physical healing of water. It was a profound revelation of God's ability to heal what seems impossible. Jehovah Rapha is not only the healer of physical ailments, but of emotional wounds, broken hearts, and shattered dreams. When the doctor's wisdom falls short, when the world's solutions are inadequate, God's healing power is unmatchable. His touch can transform the most hopeless situations, making what's bittersweet once more. No matter the depth of your pain, Jehovah Rapha stands ready to restore, renew, and heal beyond human comprehension.
Healing with Jehovah Rapha goes far beyond the physical.
While physical ailments are often the most visible, God's healing touches every part of our being, our emotions, our minds, and our spirits. Emotional wounds, the scars from past trauma, or the weight of grief, are often harder to heal than any physical injury. Yet, Jehovah Rapha is the God who heals the brokenhearted, offering peace where pain once ruled. Mentally, he brings clarity to confusion, peace to anxiety, and strength to weariness. Spiritually, he restores our connection with him, lifting the burden of guilt and shame. Just as God turned the bitter waters sweet, he can transform our emotional, mental, and spiritual turmoil into peace and wholeness. No area of your life is beyond his healing touch. Whether it's your heart, your mind, or your soul, Jehovah Rapha stands ready to restore and heal in ways that go deeper than the surface. Across the world, countless modern-day miracles testify to the healing power of Jehovah Rapha. Stories of individuals who've been given a grim diagnosis, only to experience complete recovery, speak to a miraculous healing beyond human explanation. One woman, diagnosed with terminal cancer, felt the presence of God's peace during her darkest moments. Doctors were astounded when scans revealed the cancer had vanished. Another man, suffering from debilitating anxiety, encountered a deep, spiritual healing, leading him to live free from the crippling fear that once controlled him. These modern miracles are not just coincidences. They are the evidence of Jehovah Rapha working today, just as he did in the days of Israel. His healing power doesn't only fix the body but restores the soul, emotions, and mind. When we call on Jehovah Rapha, his healing power breaks through all barriers, offering restoration that transcends medical science and human understanding. Can God still heal when hope seems dead? When all earthly solutions have failed, when doctors give their final verdict, and when our hearts have been shattered beyond repair, can God still work a miracle? The answer is yes. The story of Jehovah Rapha reveals a truth that defies logic and human understanding. Healing does not depend on the circumstances, but on the power of God. When hope is dead, when we feel buried under the weight of despair, that is when Jehovah Rapha's healing power shines brightest. Just as he turned bitter waters sweet, he can take the most hopeless situation and transform it into something beautiful. He is the God who heals when the world says it's over, when the doctors say there's no cure, and when our hearts have given up. In the darkest moments, Jehovah Rapha proves that healing is never out of reach. In the heat of battle against the Amalekites, Israel was losing ground. But when Moses lifted his hands, holding the staff of God, the tide turned. This moment revealed God as Jehovah Nissi, the God who fights for his people. As long as Moses' hands were raised, Israel prevailed, but when they dropped, Amalek began to win. With Aaron and her supporting Moses, the banner of God's presence and power was held high, leading Israel to victory. Jehovah Nissi is not a passive observer. He is an active, mighty warrior who goes to battle on our behalf. No matter how overwhelming the struggle, Jehovah Nissi fights for us, ensuring victory even when we feel weak or outmatched. He is the banner of victory, the symbol of hope, and the assurance that we are never alone in our battles. When the enemy comes against you, lift your eyes to Jehovah Nissi, for he will fight for you. In the spiritual battles we face today, the enemy often feels unseen but no less real. We may struggle with fear, doubt, temptation, or even spiritual oppression, but Jehovah Nissi remains our battle standard, the banner under which we claim victory. Just as Israel depended on God's strength during their fight against Amalek, we too can lift the banner of God's power in our own spiritual warfare. Jehovah Nissi is not just a name from the past. He is alive today, fighting for us in every battle we face. When we feel overwhelmed, we can call upon him to stand firm on our behalf, ensuring we are never alone in our fight. By claiming Jehovah Nissi as our banner, we declare that our victories are not through our own strength but through his. In every spiritual battle, when we raise God's standard, we are guaranteed victory through his mighty hand. Throughout history, countless real battles have been won through divine intervention, proving that Jehovah Nissi is ever present in our struggles. In one true story, a missionary faced insurmountable odds as hostile forces surrounded their village. With no hope of escape, the missionary and his team gathered to pray, lifting their cries to Jehovah Nissi for protection. Miraculously, as they prayed, the enemy forces suddenly retreated without explanation. Another powerful testimony comes from a man battling addiction for years. Despite repeated failures and disappointments, he surrendered his fight to Jehovah Nissi. In that moment, God's strength empowered him to break free from the chains of addiction and walk in newfound freedom. These divine victories are not just stories from ancient times. They continue today. When we call on Jehovah Nissi, we tap into the same power that delivered Israel, seeing God's mighty intervention in our lives and battles.
Imagine a battlefield, thick with smoke and chaos, the clash of sword echoing through the air.
In the midst of this fierce struggle, a figure stands tall, hands raised high, holding a banner. It is not just any banner, but a divine standard, Jehovah Nissi, the God who fights for his people. As the banner waves, the very air seems to shift, the winds howling with power. Enemies hesitate, their strength faltering. The forces of darkness tremble at the sight of God's name lifted high. With each wave of the banner, God's presence fills the battlefield, turning the tide in favor of his people. The light of his victory breaks through the darkness, flooding the warriors with hope and strength. In that moment, Jehovah Nissi is not just a name but a visible force, God's mighty hand intervening to bring victory, courage, and peace in the midst of every conflict. Gideon's life was shattered by fear and uncertainty. Hiding in a winepress from the Midianites, He was overwhelmed by the chaos surrounding him. But in that moment of terror, Jehovah Shalom, the God of peace, appeared to him.
Zangelow ze leur calait Gideon a Mighty Warrior. A stark contraste tout ce trembling manida in fear.
Gideon's encounter with Jehovah Shalom was more than just a peaceful greeting. It was a life-altering calling. God's peace didn't mean the absence of conflict, but the presence of his strength and assurance in the midst of it. When Jehovah Shalom declared peace over Gideon, it wasn't about the storm ceasing. It was about God's overwhelming presence in the storm. Gideon was equipped to face his fears, not with his own power, but with the peace that comes when God calls us to stand firm, even in the midst of chaos. There are moments when anxiety grips us, and everything around us seems to spiral out of control. The weight of uncertainty, the fear of what's ahead, it can feel unbearable. But then, in the most unexpected moments, God's peace, Jehovah Shalom, descends upon us. It's not the kind of peace the world offers. It's a peace that transcends understanding.
Just like when Jésus calme the storm with a single command, Jehovah Shalom qui de turbulence within.
In the midst of a raging sea, there's an inexplicable calm, a stillness that doesn't make sense to the human mind. It's a peace that doesn't depend on our circumstances, but flows from a deep trust in God's sovereignty. When we invite Jehovah Shalom into our hearts, anxiety gives way to calm, fear gives way to courage, and we stand firm, knowing that the God of peace is with us, no matter the storm. Countless testimonies echo the transformative power of Jehovah Shalom in the midst of life's fiercest storms. One woman, gripped by anxiety and depression, found herself drowning in a sea of hopelessness. Despite counseling and medication, nothing gave her peace. Then, in a quiet moment of prayer, she called on Jehovah Shalom. Suddenly, a sense of calm washed over her, lifting the weight that had held her captive. She was no longer ruled by fear, but by the peace that only God could provide. Another man, facing financial ruin and a collapsing marriage, felt as though his world was crumbling. Yet, in the darkest hour, he turned to God, and Jehovah Shalom stepped in. Against all odds, his marriage was restored, and his financial situation turned around. These stories reveal the truth. Jehovah Shalom isn't just a name, it's the lifeline that carries us through both internal and external storms. In the midst of life's fiercest battles, whether internal struggles or external wars, Jehovah Shalom calls out a single word, peace. But what does it take to hear that word in the chaos? When everything around you is shaking, when the noise of fear, doubt, and uncertainty is deafening, how do you find that still, small voice? What does it take to hear peace in a war zone? It's not simply the absence of conflict, but the presence of God in the middle of it. It's the willingness to surrender control, to trust that even in the darkest moments, God's peace is still available. Sometimes, peace doesn't come with a clear path or a quick resolution. It arrives with a profound sense of God's presence, lifting us above the storm. So the question remains, are you ready to listen for God's peace, even in the fiercest battle of your life? In the quiet of Psalm 23, we discover a deeply personal connection with Jehovah Rohi, the shepherd who knows us intimately. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want isn't just a comforting verse, it's a powerful declaration of trust. God as our shepherd doesn't just lead us, He knows our every need, our every fear, our every desire. He leads us beside still waters, restores our soul, and guides us through dark valleys, never abandoning us, even when we walk through the most uncertain times. Each verse paints a picture of a relationship so close, so tender, that the shepherd's love and care feel tangible. The intimacy of Jehovah Rohi speaks of more than provision. It's about the security of knowing that God knows your name, understands your heart, and will never let you go, even when the journey is rough. Jehovah Rohi is the shepherd who holds you close in His care. In the life of a shepherd, the rod and staff are indispensable tools of protection and guidance. Jehovah Rohi, our shepherd, uses these tools not just to guide us, but to keep us safe from harm. The rod symbolizes strength and discipline, a powerful force to ward off dangers, whether predators or the distractions that pull us away from God's path. The staff, with its gentle curve, represents comfort and correction, helping us stay close to the shepherd, gently guiding us back when we wander. But perhaps the most comforting tool of all is His voice. The voice of Jehovah Rohi calls us by name, offering reassurance and peace, leading us with clarity in times of confusion. In moments of uncertainty, when we feel lost or overwhelmed, the shepherd's rod, staff, and voice are reminders that we are never alone. God is always present, protecting, guiding, and calling us back to His care. Imagine the heart-stopping moment when a lost sheep, alone and frightened, is found. For hours or even days, it wanders through darkness, vulnerable to danger, separated from the safety of the fold. Then, in a single moment, the Jehovah Rohi, the shepherd, spots it. His heart stirs with compassion as he calls out, and the lost sheep, weary and broken, hears his voice.
There's no judge, only love.
The shepherd rushes to lift the sheep in his arms, carrying it back to the fold. The weight of the world falls from the sheep's shoulders as it's held close, safe once more. The shepherd doesn't scold, he rejoices. The lost has been found. For the sheep, this moment is everything. Proof that no matter how far it strays, the shepherd will always seek and find it. This is the heart of Jehovah Rohi, the shepherd who will never let you go. In a world where we often feel lost and alone, the question arises, are you following a shepherd who lays down his life for you? The true shepherd, Jehovah Rohi, doesn't just guide us from a distance. He sacrificed everything for our safety. Jesus, the ultimate shepherd, showed us the depth of his love when he laid down his life on the cross, ensuring that we would never be abandoned. He knew that the path to healing, salvation, and peace would require his ultimate sacrifice. Are you willing to follow a shepherd who loves you this much? This shepherd doesn't merely lead us. He walks with us through the darkest valleys and highest peaks, even laying down his life to bring us home. The question isn't whether he will care for you, but whether you will trust him enough to follow him, knowing he has already given everything for you. In Ezekiel's prophecy of restoration, Jehovah Shammah emerges as the God who is always present, even in our deepest trials. The Israelites, in the midst of exile, felt abandoned and forgotten. But God promises them a future where his presence will never depart again. Jehovah Shammah is the God who is never distant, never silent, and never absent. His name means, the Lord is there, not just in moments of joy, but in the darkest, most hopeless times. In a world where people and circumstances may fail us, God stands as the constant. When you feel alone, when the world around you falls apart, Jehovah Shammah reminds you that God's presence is unshakable. His promise is clear. No matter where you go, he will be there, offering comfort, strength, and restoration. Jehovah Shammah is not just a title, it is a reassurance that you are never alone. Jehovah Shammah is the last name of God revealed in Ezekiel's prophecy, and its placement signifies something profound, God's eternal, unending presence. As the final promise in a vision of restoration, it's a declaration that no matter what happens, God will never leave us. The Israelites, torn apart and scattered, needed to know that God's presence would endure beyond their struggles, beyond their exile, beyond all things. Jehovah Shammah is the name that echoes through history, reminding us that even when we walk through the deepest valleys, God's presence is the anchor that keeps us steady. This name doesn't just speak of a moment in time, it speaks of the future, of eternity. It's a promise that no matter where life takes us, God will always be by our side. Jehovah Shammah is the reminder that his presence transcends all, forever constant, unshakable, and true. The name Jehovah Shammah comes to life in the story of Israel's exile, a time when they felt abandoned, lost, and distant from God. Yet, in the depths of their emptiness, God promises his unshakable presence. From exile to intimacy, his presence became the bridge that filled their brokenness. It was in their darkest hour that Jehovah Shammah moved them from a place of despair to a deeper connection with the divine. The people learned that even in their isolation, God's presence was the healing balm they needed. This name isn't just about physical proximity. It's about a God who meets us where we are, in our loneliest and most barren moments, and fills us with peace, purpose, and hope. When God's presence fills our emptiness, it transforms our sorrow into joy, our loss into restoration. Jehovah Shammah assures us that no matter how far we stray, he is always there, ready to heal. Imagine the overwhelming realization that Jehovah Shammah, the God who promises to always be with you, never left.
It's a moment of pure révélation, when all the pain, l'online, and double melt away in the light of Hashi's constant présence.
You see, when we feel abandoned, we often forget that God has been there the entire time, waiting for us to recognize his closeness. That moment of clarity can be both humbling and empowering. You might wonder, how did I ever feel alone when he was beside me all along? The truth is, God's presence isn't bound by our emotions or circumstances. It is eternal, unshakable, and unwavering. In that final moment of understanding, you experience the power of his unrelenting love, love that never fades, never gives up, and never leaves. The peace that follows is unexplainable, for you know now that God will never forsake you. As we've explored the powerful names of God, we've witnessed his endless love, his unmatched power, and His unwavering presence in every moment of our lives. From the Creator who forms us out of nothing to the Shepherd who knows us by name, God's names reveal a God who is intimately involved in every part of our journey. No matter where you are, His names hold the power to transform your life. If this story has touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others who need to hear about God's amazing promises. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story that could change your life. Keep walking in His presence, always.